The dead moon of Virith had no air, no water, and no life. It floated in the darkness of space like a forgotten stone. But deep inside this cold rock, there was something that every species in the galaxy wanted, something they had fought and died for over 12,000 years, the eternal. Armor. The Galactic Council had built a massive station around the moon. They filled it with guards, weapons, and surveillance systems. Every day, ships from different worlds came to try their luck. Every day they failed. The armor sat in a vault made of metal that could survive the explosion of a star. It looked simple at first glance. Just a suit of black and silver plates that seemed to absorb all light around it. But this was no ordinary armor. The architects had made it billions of years ago. The architects were the first intelligent beings to ever exist in the universe. Nobody knew exactly what the armor could do. The stories said it could make its wearer invincible. Some said it gave control over time and space itself. Others whispered that it held the secrets of creation. But one thing everyone agreed on was this: whoever wore the armor would become the most powerful being in the galaxy. The Kethra had tried first. They were a race of tall reptilian warriors with scales as hard as steel. Their greatest champion, a soldier who had won 1,000 battles, walked into the vault with confidence. He reached for the armor with his clawed hand. The armor's defense systems activated instantly. Energy beams shot from the walls. The floor opened beneath him. Blades swung from hidden slots. The champion died before he could even scream. After that, the Kethra sent armies. They lost 10,000 warriors in a single week. The Veluxi came next. They were beings made of pure crystal and light, with no physical bodies that could be harmed. They thought they were clever. They floated into the vault as beams of energy, trying to merge with the armor directly. The armor rejected them so violently that it shattered 3 of their oldest leaders into pieces. The Veluxi never tried again. Then came the Dranics. They were insect-like creatures with a hive mind. Millions of them worked as one. They believed that if one body failed, another would succeed. They sent wave after wave of drones into the vault for 200 years. Not a single one ever touched the armor. Every known species in the galaxy had tried. All of them failed. The armor's systems could identify every life form in the galactic database, and it saw all of them as threats. It would not let anyone near it, and so the armor waited. Then humanity arrived. Lieutenant Jake Collins was not a hero. He was just a soldier doing his job. At 28 years old, he had served in the Earth's Expeditionary Force for 6 years. He had brown hair, tired eyes, and a scar on his chin from a training accident. He liked coffee, old movies, and sending messages to his mom back on Earth. Humans had only been traveling through space for 60 years. In galactic terms, they were babies. Most alien species ignored them completely. Some laughed at their small ships and simple weapons. A few traded with them out of curiosity, but nobody took humans seriously. Jake's ship was called the Starbound. It was a small vessel with a crew of 12. They were on a salvage mission, looking for old technology they could sell or study. The work was boring, but paid well. Danny Martinez was Jake's best friend and co-pilot. He sat at his station, watching the scanner screens with half-closed eyes. Lisa Park, the chief engineer, was somewhere below deck, fixing a problem with the water recycler. Nate Cooper handled communications, mostly by complaining about how nobody ever sent them interesting messages. It was Nate who first noticed the signal. "Hey, Lieutenant," he said, sitting up straighter. "I'm picking up something weird from that moon." Jake walked over to look at the screen. "What kind of weird?" "Old, weird. Like really old. The signal pattern doesn't match anything in our database." Danny turned around. "That moon is Virith. The Galactic Council has a station there. Why would there be an unknown signal?" Jake stared at the readings. Something about them made him curious. He couldn't explain it, but he felt pulled toward that moon. It was like hearing a song from his childhood that he had forgotten. "Set a course," he said. "Let's take a look." Lieutenant," Nate said nervously. "That's Council territory. We're not exactly welcome there. We'll say we're responding to a distress signal." They can't argue with that. Starbound changed direction and headed for Virith. 3 hours later, they entered orbit around the dead moon. The Galactic Council's station hung in space above them, massive and threatening. But strangely, nobody contacted them. No warnings. No demands to leave. The station seemed almost empty. "This is wrong," Danny muttered. "Where is everyone?" Lisa came up from the engine room, wiping grease from her hands. "What's going on?" Jake pointed at the screen. "We're about to find out. There's an entrance to the moon's interior right below us. The signal is coming from inside. We're just going to walk in." Lisa asked. Jake smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. He didn't know why, but he felt like he was supposed to be here. Like everything in his life had led to this moment. "Yeah," he said. "We are." They suited up, grabbed their weapons, and boarded the shuttle. As they descended toward the surface of Virith, none of them knew that the galaxy was watching. Hidden cameras on the Council station recorded everything. Observers from a dozen species sat in distant rooms. Expecting to watch another group of fools die, they were wrong. When Jake's team entered the vault, the defense systems activated just like they always did. Energy beams charged. Blades emerged from the walls. The floor panels began to shift, but then something strange happened. Something that had never happened before. The systems scanned Jake. They analyzed his DNA, his brain patterns, his entire being, and then they shut down. Jake walked forward one step at a time. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking, but he kept moving. The armor was ahead of him, glowing softly in the darkness. When he reached it, the armor opened like a flower greeting the sun. It had waited for 12,000 years, and finally, its true owner had arrived. Jake touched it, and the galaxy would never be the same. The moment Jake touched the armor, everything changed. It did not feel like putting on clothes. It felt like becoming something new. The black and silver plates seemed to melt and flow around his body. They wrapped around his legs, his arms, his chest. They covered his hands and feet. A helmet formed around his head, but he could still see and breathe perfectly. Then the pain came. Jake screamed. He fell to his knees as fire burned through every part of his body. Thin wires of light shot out from the armor and pushed into his skin. They traveled through his muscles, wrapped around his bones, and connected to his brain. He could feel the armor becoming part of him. Danny ran forward to help, but an invisible wall of energy pushed him back. Jake, can you hear me?" Jake could not answer. His mind was drowning in information. Images flashed before his eyes faster than he could understand. He saw stars being born and dying. He saw galaxies spinning through the void. He saw creatures that had lived billions of years ago, tall beings with silver skin and kind eyes. The architects, they spoke to him without words. Their message poured directly into his thoughts. "We are the first. We seeded life across the cosmos. We watched our children grow, spread, and build. But we also watched them fall. We watched them become cruel. We watched them destroy each other and themselves." Jake saw visions of war. He saw planets burning. He saw species wiping out other species for no reason except fear and greed. He saw empires rise and crumble, leaving only death behind. "We could not stop them," the architects continued. "We were dying. Our time was ending. But we could leave behind a gift and a judge. The armor you now wear is both." More images flooded his mind. Jake saw Earth, his home, as it looked 4 billion years ago. A tiny blue dot with no life on it yet. He saw the architects place something in the young oceans. Something that would eventually become all life on the planet. "We hid your world. We protected your species. We gave you time to grow. Because we saw in your future something we did not see in others." Jake's mind was shown pictures of humans. Not just the good parts, but everything. War and peace. Hatred and love. Cruelty and kindness. Art and destruction. Humans at their worst and at their best. You are unpredictable. You are chaotic. You can be monsters, but you can also be heroes. You feel deeply and change quickly. You never stop adapting. Of all the species we created, you are the only ones we could not predict. The architect showed him the armor one more time. This is why we chose you. Not because you are good, not because you are strong, but because you might be different. You might find a new path. The vision stopped. Jake opened his eyes. He was still on his knees in the vault. Danny, Lisa, and Nate stood nearby, staring at him with wide eyes. He could see their faces clearly, even though he was still wearing the helmet. "Jake," Danny whispered. "Are you okay?" Jake stood up slowly. He felt different, stronger, faster. He could sense things he never sensed before. He could feel the energy flowing through the walls, the heartbeats of his friends, the distant hum of stars far away. "Okay," he said. His voice sounded strange, deeper somehow. "We need to get back to the ship. Now." He ran. But they were not fast enough. In a control room on the council station, Ambassador Zethkin of the Veloxy watched the footage with horror. His crystalline body flickered with colors of fear and anger. For 3,000 years, his people had dreamed of claiming the architect's gift. They had prayed for it. They had sacrificed for it. And now, a human, a primitive creature from a primitive world, had taken it, just think of quotes can reached for his communication device. His fingers trembled as he pressed the emergency broadcast code. "This is Ambassador Zethkin to all members of the Galactic Council. Emergency Priority Alpha. The Eternal Armor has been claimed. Repeat, the armor has been claimed. The wearer is human." The message traveled at faster than light speed. It reached every corner of the galaxy within minutes. On 100 worlds, leaders stopped what they were doing to listen. Generals pulled up star maps. Scientists checked their data again and again, hoping it was a mistake. It was not a mistake. The HFY War Council met within the hour. Their leader, General Threshkon, slammed his clawed fist on the table. "Humans are children," he growled. "They have barely learned to walk among the stars. They must not be allowed to keep this power." His advisors nodded. "We could crush their home world in a day," one of them said. "They have no real defenses." General Threshkin bared his teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. "Begin preparing the fleet." The Dranik's hive received the news differently. Their queen mother sat in the center of a vast chamber, surrounded by millions of her children. She was old, older than most stars, and she had learned patience. But even she felt fear. "The humans," she whispered, and her voice echoed through every member of the hive. "We had planned to conquer them eventually. Now they may conquer us instead. What should we do, Mother?" Her generals asked. "Watch, wait, and prepare for the worst." On Earth, nobody knew what was happening. Jake's ship jumped through hyperspace, racing toward home. He sat in his quarters, trying to understand what he had become. The armor was still on him. He tried to take it off, but it would not come. The pieces would separate for a moment, but they always flowed back together. He was scared. He had never asked for this. He just wanted to be a normal soldier, live a normal life, maybe get married someday and have kids. Now he was bonded to the most dangerous weapon in the universe. Lisa knocked on his door. "Jake, can I come in?" "Yeah." She stepped inside and sat across from him. Her face was calm, but he could see the worry in her eyes. "How are you feeling?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I don't know. The armor is showing me things. Memories from the architects. They created life across the whole galaxy, Lisa, and they made this armor because they knew their children would fail. They wanted someone to fix things, and they chose humans. They chose me." Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Maybe that's not such a bad thing. I mean, you're a good person, Jake. You care about people. If someone has to have this power, I'm glad it's you." Jake looked at her. He wanted to believe she was right, but he could also feel something else through the armor. He could feel the fear spreading across the galaxy. He could sense ships being launched and weapons being powered up. The galaxy had spent 12,000 years being afraid of the armor. Now they were afraid of him, and afraid people did dangerous things. "Lisa," he said quietly, I think we're in trouble. She nodded. I know, but we're with you, whatever happens. The Starbound continued its journey home. Behind them, in the darkness of space, fleets began to move. War was coming. The Starbound landed on Earth 3 days later. By then, the whole planet knew something was wrong. News channels showed footage of alien fleets gathering at the edge of human space. Diplomats from species that had once been friendly suddenly stopped returning calls. Trade ships turned around and went home. Earth was being isolated, cut off from the galaxy like a diseased limb. Jake walked down the landing ramp with his crew behind him. A crowd of soldiers and officials waited on the landing pad. At the front stood Admiral Karen Hayes, the commander of Earth's defense forces. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. Lieutenant Collins, she said, looking at the armor covering his body. I've been reading reports about you for 2 days. I still don't believe half of them. Admiral, I'm not sure I believe them either. She almost smiled. Come with me. The World Council wants to talk to you. They walked through long hallways filled with nervous soldiers. Jake could feel their fear. Some of it was directed at the aliens gathering in space, but some of it was directed at him. He could not blame them. He was scared of himself, too. The World Council met in a massive underground chamber. 20 leaders from different nations sat around a curved table. They all stared at Jake as he entered. Lieutenant Collins, said the council president, an older man named Richard Grant. Please tell us everything, Jake told them. He explained about the signal, the vault, and the armor. He described the visions the architects had shown him. He told them about the message, that humans were chosen to be different, to maybe find a new path. When he finished, the room was silent. So this armor, one of the council members said slowly, it can't be removed? No, I've tried. It's part of me now. And you're saying that ancient aliens created humanity? That they've been watching us? That's what the armor showed me. I don't know if it's true or if it's just what they wanted to believe, but it felt true. President Grant leaned forward. Lieutenant, the Veluxy Collective sent us a message 2 hours ago. They want us to hand you over. They say that if we refuse, 14 species have agreed to attack Earth together.
Oh.
Jake felt cold. And what did you tell them? We haven't answered yet. We wanted to hear from you first. Admiral Hayes stepped forward. Mr. President, if I may, I've studied the reports on this armor. If even half of what the legends say is true, we might be able to defend ourselves. This could be the most powerful weapon in existence. Or it could get us all killed, another council member said. We've been in space for 60 years. These aliens have been building empires for thousands. What chance do we have? Jake listened to them argue. Part of him wanted to agree with the scared ones. He could surrender himself. Let the aliens take him. Maybe Earth would be safe. Maybe. But then the armor showed him something. Images flashed through his mind again. This time they were different. He saw what the galaxy's great empires had done to species they had conquered. He saw the Kethra burning planets and taking slaves. He saw the Dranics consuming entire civilizations, absorbing them into their hive. He saw the Veluxy manipulating smaller species. Using them as tools and throwing them away, he saw what they would do to Earth if they won. And he saw something else. A purpose. A reason why the architects had waited so long? No, Jake said. The arguing stopped. Everyone looked at him. What? President Grant asked. I won't surrender, and neither should Earth. Jake's voice was steady now. The fear was still there, but something stronger was pushing through it. The armor didn't just give me power. It gave me knowledge. I know what these empires are. I know what they've done. If we give up now, they'll never stop. They'll take everything from us. And if we fight, Admiral Hayes asked, oh, then at least we fight. That's what humans do, isn't it? We don't just accept what's coming. We push back. The council members looked at each other. Some were angry. Some were scared. But some had something else in their eyes. Something that looked like hope. President Grant finally spoke. Admiral Hayes, what do you need to prepare our defenses? Time, Mr. President, time and whatever Lieutenant Collins can teach us about that armor. Grant nodded slowly. Then you have both. Tell the Veluxi their offer is rejected. The next 3 weeks were the busiest of Jake's life. He worked with Earth's scientists and engineers every day. The armor was beyond their understanding, but it could teach him things, and he could share what he learned. He showed them how to upgrade their shields, how to make their weapons stronger, how to build sensors that could see farther than before. At night he trained. The armor had abilities he was only beginning to understand. He could move faster than any human should. He could survive in space without a suit. He could project energy shields and beams of light. Every day he discovered something new. But he also spent time with his friends. Danny visited him often, bringing food and jokes to lighten the mood. Lisa worked beside him in the engineering labs, turning his ideas into reality. Nate kept the communication channels running, monitoring the alien fleets and reporting their movements. One evening, Jake sat on the roof of the military base, looking up at the stars. A woman walked up and sat beside him. She wore a doctor's uniform and had kind brown eyes. "You look tired," she said. Jake smiled weakly. "I am tired. Are you one of the doctors here?" "Yes. My name is Katie Reeves. I've been treating some of the soldiers for stress and anxiety. They're all scared." "So am I." Katie looked at him. "Really? Everyone talks about you like you're some kind of superhero now." "I'm just a guy who touched the wrong thing in a cave. Now the whole galaxy wants to kill me." Katie laughed softly. It was a nice sound. That's a new way to put it. They talked for a while. About home, about family, about normal things that felt a million miles away. For a few minutes, Jake forgot about the armor and the war and everything else. He was just a person having a conversation with another person. When Katie left, she touched his arm briefly. "For what it's worth, I don't think you're just a guy. I think there's a reason this happened to you." Jake watched her go. He wanted to believe she was right. 2 days later, the alien fleets entered the solar system. 40,000 warships from 14 species. More firepower than humanity had ever seen in one place. They spread out around Earth like a net, blocking every escape route. The final message came through on all channels. It was from Ambassador Zethkon himself. "People of Earth, you have 1 hour to surrender Lieutenant Jake Collins and the Eternal Armor. If you refuse, we will destroy your world. There will be no survivors. This is your only warning." Jake stood on the bridge of the Starbound, now upgraded with technology he had learned from the armor. His crew stood with him. Admiral Hayes was on another ship nearby, ready to fight. "Well," Danny said nervously, "I guess this is it." Jake nodded. He could feel the armor humming with energy, ready to be used. He could feel the fear of everyone around him. And he could feel something else too. Hope, he said. "Let's show them what humans can do." The hour ended. The aliens did not wait a second longer. 10,000 weapons fired at once. Beams of light and balls of plasma shot toward Earth from every direction. Each one was powerful enough to destroy a city. Together, they could have cracked the planet in half. Jake closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. The armor responded. Energy flowed through him like a river, more power than he had ever felt. It rushed out of his body and spread across space, forming a dome of golden light around the entire solar system. The weapons hit the dome. All of them. The light flashed so bright that it blinded sensors across the fleet. When it faded, Earth was still there. The dome was still there. Nothing had gotten through. On the bridge of the Kethra flagship, General Threshkon stared at his screen in disbelief. Impossible. Fire again. All ships, fire everything. They did. Thousands more weapons struck the dome. Some of them could destroy moons. Some had been designed to tear holes in the fabric of space itself. The dome held. Jake felt the attacks like rain on his skin. Each one pushed against him, but none of them broke through. The armor was feeding him information, showing him exactly where to strengthen the shield, exactly how much power to use. Danny watched from the bridge of the Starbound. His hands were shaking. "Jake, how long can you keep this up?" "I don't know," Jake admitted. His voice came through the ship's speakers, even though he was floating outside in space. But I'm going to try something. He sent his mind outward, through the dome, into the alien fleet. The armor allowed him to connect to every communication system on every ship. Every screen, every speaker, every display. Then he spoke. His voice reached 40,000 ships. It reached every planet with a receiver pointed at this battle. It echoed across the entire galaxy. My name is Jake Collins. I am human. I am wearing the eternal armor of the architects. And I am asking you to stop. General Threshkin's face appeared on one of the screens. Stop. You want us to stop? You have stolen the greatest weapon in the galaxy, and you want us to just accept it? I didn't steal anything. The armor chose me. It chose humanity. Lies. The armor belongs to everyone. It should have been shared. It should have been ours. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but the armor helped him stay calm. It showed him what to say. The armor waited 12,000 years. Thousands of your people died trying to claim it. Do you know why? Because you weren't meant to have it. None of you were. The architects saw what you would do with power like this. They saw the wars, the genocides, the empires built on blood. They decided to wait for someone different. And humans are different? The Veloxy ambassador's mocking voice joined the conversation. You are children. You have barely left your own world. Maybe that's exactly why we were chosen, Jake said. We haven't done what you've done. Not yet. We still have a chance to be something better. He sent images out through the same connection, the visions the architects had shown him. He let the entire galaxy see what their great empires had really built. The burning planets. The enslaved species. The civilizations wiped out for nothing but greed. On 100 worlds, people watched in silence. The architects didn't create this armor to make another conqueror, Jake continued. They created it to give the galaxy a second chance. I didn't ask for this power. I don't want it. But I have it now, and I'm going to use it. Use it for what? General Threshkin demanded. For rules. Simple ones. No more wars of conquest. No more genocide. No more destroying entire species because they're weaker than you. If anyone tries, the armor will stop them. Their weapons won't work. Their ships won't fly. Their plans will fail before they start. The communication channels exploded with angry voices. Leaders from every species shouted over each other. Some called Jake a tyrant. Some called him a fool. Some said he had no right to judge them. Jake waited for them to finish. Then he spoke again. You're right. I don't have the right to judge you, but the architects did. They created all of us. They watched all of us, and they decided that things had to change. I'm just the messenger. He paused. The armor was showing him something new. A way to demonstrate his power without violence. A way to make them understand. You want proof? Fine. Every weapon in your fleet is now disabled. Every single one. Across 40,000 ships, weapons went dead. Power cells drained. Missiles locked in their tubes. Soldiers pressed buttons and pulled triggers and nothing happened. The silence was terrifying. I could destroy all of you right now, Jake said softly. I could tear your ships apart like paper. The armor has enough power to turn every star in this galaxy into a bomb. But I'm not going to do that. Do you know why? No one answered, because that's not what humans should do. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to find another way. Admiral Hayes' voice came through his earpiece. Jake, the fleet isn't retreating. They're still in formation. What do we do? Wait, Jake said. Let them think. The minutes passed slowly. Jake floated in space, surrounded by the golden dome of light. He could feel millions of alien minds processing what they had seen. Fear and anger and confusion swirled through the fleet. Then, slowly, something began to change. A small ship broke formation. It was a Veloxy vessel, one of the smaller ones. It turned and flew away from Earth. Then another ship left. A Kethra cruiser. Then Tadronic's carriers. Then more. General Threshkin's face reappeared on the screen. His expression was twisted with rage and something else. something that might have been shame. "This isn't over, human," he growled. "We will find a way to defeat you. We will take what is ours." "Then you'll fail," Jake said simply. "Every time. Until you learn." The Kethra fleet turned and jumped into hyperspace. The Dranics followed. One by one, the great species that had threatened Earth fled back to their own territories. When the last ship was gone, Jake lowered the dome. He was exhausted. Every part of his body ached. The armor was still supplying him with energy, but he could feel how much he had used. Danny's voice came through the speaker. "Jake, are you okay?" "Yeah," Jake said. "I think so." "You did it. You actually did it." They left. Jake floated back toward the Starbound. The ship's bay doors opened to welcome him in. Danny and Lisa and Nate were waiting inside, their faces filled with joy and relief. But Jake knew this was not the end. He had won one battle. He had scared the galaxy into retreating, but scared people didn't stay scared forever. They came back. They tried again. They found new ways to fight. As the armor slowly released its grip on his senses, Jake thought about what came next. He had made a promise to the whole galaxy. No more conquest. No more genocide. Now he had to keep it. And that was going to be the hardest thing he had ever done. 10 years passed. The galaxy changed more in that decade than it had in the previous 1,000 years. At first, no one believed Jake's warnings would hold. The Kethra tested him 3 times. 3 times their weapons failed when they tried to invade smaller species. 3 times their ships stopped moving when they prepared attacks. After the 3rd time, he finally understood. The Dranics Hive tried a different approach. They sent assassins after Jake. The armor detected each one before they got close. Some were captured. Some were sent back to their queen with a simple message: "Stop trying." The Queen Mother was old and wise. She stopped. The Veluxi never openly challenged Jake again. They were patient beings who thought in centuries instead of years. They watched and waited, hoping that the armor's power would weaken over time. It did not. Slowly, something strange began to happen. Without conquest and war to focus on, the great species had to find other things to do. The Kethro discovered that their warrior culture had skills beyond fighting. They knew how to organize large groups, how to work toward difficult goals, how to never give up. These same skills made them excellent builders. Within 5 years, they had constructed the largest space station the galaxy had ever seen. A meeting place where any species could come to trade and talk. The Dranics Hive turned inward. Without new civilizations to consume, they began to explore their own collective mind. They created art for the first time in their history. Vast sculptures that floated in space. It's made of millions of individual drones holding positions for centuries. They created music that could only be heard by those with minds connected to the hive. Symphonies that lasted for years. Even the Veluxi changed. Ambassador Zethkin, the same one who had first announced Jake's claiming of the armor, eventually became humanity's ally. He came to Earth on a diplomatic mission and spent months studying human culture. He was fascinated by how much humans changed in a single lifetime, how quickly they forgot old hatreds and formed new friendships. "You are chaos," he told Jake one day. "Beautiful, terrifying chaos. Perhaps the architects were right about you after all." Jake's own life changed too. He married Katie Reeves in a small ceremony on Earth. Danny was his best man. Lisa and Nate sat in the front row, crying happy tears. They had their first child 2 years later, a boy they named Samuel. Their daughter Emma came 3 years after that. Jake tried to live as normally as possible. He walked his children to school. He cooked dinner for his family. He watched old movies with Katie on quiet evenings. The armor was always with him, a second skin he could never remove. But it had become as natural as breathing. But he was also the guardian of the galaxy. When conflicts arose between species, Jake would appear. Sometimes just his presence was enough to calm things down. Other times, he had to use the armor's power to stop weapons and freeze fleets. He never killed. He never had to. The threat was enough. Some called him a tyrant. They said he had no right to decide what was allowed and what was forbidden. They wrote angry messages and organized protests on distant worlds. Jake understood their anger. He felt it himself sometimes. He was just one person. What gave him the right to control the fate of billions? The armor gave him an answer. During quiet moments, it would show him visions of what would happen without him. Wars that would break out. Planets that would burn. Species that would disappear forever. The armor could see possible futures, paths that history might take. Without Jake's intervention, the galaxy would tear itself apart within a century. "That's a heavy burden," Katie said one night, when he told her about these visions. "Knowing what would happen if you stopped," as Jake agreed. "But it's also a reason to keep going." Their children grew up knowing their father was special. Samuel sometimes complained that the other kids at school treated him differently. Emma liked to brag about her dad's powers and had to be reminded that showing off was not kind. They were normal children with an abnormal situation. And Jake and Katie did their best to keep them grounded. Danny remained Jake's closest friend. He eventually became the captain of his own ship, exploring distant parts of the galaxy that humans had never seen before. He sent back messages filled with stories and pictures, and Jake read every one. Lisa Park became the head of Earth's new technology division. She took the knowledge Jake had shared from the armor and used it to advance human science by centuries. Ships became faster. Medicines became better. Energy became cleaner. She never stopped being amazed by what they could do. Nate Cooper opened a restaurant on the Kethra space station. He served Earth food to aliens who had never tasted anything like it. His burgers became famous across 3 star systems, and so the years went by. On the 10th anniversary of Jake's bonding with the armor, a celebration was held on Earth. Representatives from every major species came to attend. Even General Threshcon appeared, older now and less angry. He shook Jake's hand and admitted grudgingly that perhaps the human way was not entirely wrong. That evening, Jake stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The stars shone bright above him. He could feel the armor humming softly against his skin, content and calm. Katie came to stand beside him. She took his hand and leaned her head against his shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "The architects," Jake said. "They waited billions of years for the right species. They waited for someone who might do things differently. And they chose us. Do you think we're living up to their hopes?" Jake thought about it. The galaxy was not perfect. There was still suffering, still injustice, still problems that even the armor could not fix. But things were better. They were getting better every day. "I think we're trying," he said. And maybe that's what they wanted. Not perfection. Just effort. Just hope, Katie smiled. "That sounds very human." "It is. That's the whole point." Below them, the city glowed with lights. People walked and talked and lived their lives. On worlds across the galaxy, other beings did the same. They built and created and dreamed. They fought sometimes, but they also forgave. They made mistakes, but they also learned. Jake did not know how long he would live, or how long the armor would keep him going. He did not know what challenges tomorrow would bring. But he knew one thing for certain. Humanity had been given a gift and a responsibility. They had been chosen to guide the galaxy toward something better. Not through conquest or control, but through example. Through hope. Through the simple belief that things could change. It would not be easy. It would never be easy. But as Jake looked up at the stars, he felt ready. The armor had waited 12,000 years for the right person. Now that person was here, and he had no intention of letting the architects down. Galaxy held its breath whenever he walked into a room, but it was no longer fear that made them pause. It was something else, something that looked a lot like hope.